The wrench slipped from Alex's greasy fingers for the third time that hour. Working alone in the asteroid belt had its challenges, but the pay was good, and the solitude suited someone who preferred machines to people. The mining rig's cooling system had been acting up for days, and Alex needed to fix it before the next ore shipment arrived. A bright flash lit up the viewport, followed by a rumbling that shook the entire station. Alex dropped the tools and rushed to the observation deck. Something large had crashed into the asteroid they were mining, sending chunks of rock spinning into space. Where there should have been solid stone, a smoking crater now glowed with the heat of twisted metal. Alex grabbed the emergency suit and helmet. Whatever had crashed might contain survivors, and out here in the middle of nowhere, every life mattered. The walk across the asteroid's surface took 20 minutes in the low gravity. Each step kicked up dust that hung in the thin atmosphere, like fog. The crash site was worse than it looked from the station. A small spacecraft, maybe an escape pod, had buried itself deep in the rock. Its hull was cracked open like an egg, spilling strange technology and what looked like personal belongings across the crater. Alex approached carefully, checking the air scanner. The readings showed breathable atmosphere leaking from the wreck. Soft whimpering sound came from inside the twisted metal. Alex's heart jumped. Something was alive in there. Moving closer, Alex peered through the largest crack in the hull. Two pairs of golden eyes stared back, full of fear and pain. They were clearly not human. Each creature was about the size of a human teenager, but built differently. Their bodies were covered in dark fur with silver stripes. Sharp claws extended from their hands, and their faces held an alien intelligence that was both fascinating and terrifying. One of them, the smaller one, had a deep gash across its shoulder that bled dark blue blood. The larger creature hissed and positioned itself between Alex and its injured companion. Its claws scraped against the metal as it prepared to fight despite being obviously hurt. A broken leg bent at an unnatural angle, and burns covered parts of its fur. Alex held up empty hands and spoke in the calmest voice possible. "Hey there. I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help." The creatures didn't understand the words, but something in Alex's tone made the larger one hesitate. Its golden eyes studied the human's face, looking for signs of threat. Alex moved very slowly, reaching into the emergency kit for medical supplies. "See? Just bandages and medicine. You're both hurt pretty badly." The smaller creature made a weak sound that might have been a whimper. Its companion looked between Alex and its injured friend, clearly torn between protecting and getting help. Alex sat down on the rocky ground, making no sudden movements. "I know you don't trust me." "That's smart. But if I wanted to hurt you, I would have brought weapons, not medical supplies." For several long minutes they stayed in this standoff. The injured creature's breathing became more labored, and the larger one's resistance began to weaken. Finally, desperation won over caution. The protector stepped aside, allowing Alex to approach. Working on alien biology was guesswork, but Alex had studied enough first aid to understand the basics. The smaller one's shoulder wound was deep but clean. Alex carefully cleaned it with antiseptic and wrapped it with bandages, speaking softly the entire time. The creature flinched at first, but gradually relaxed as it realized the human was genuinely helping. The larger one's broken leg was more complicated. Alex had to improvise a splint using pieces from the wrecked ship. The creature bit down on a piece of metal to keep from crying out, its claws leaving gouges in the deck plating. "You're brave," Alex said, gently securing the splint. "Both of you. Most people would be screaming by now." When the immediate medical care was finished, Alex faced a bigger problem. The creatures needed food, water, and shelter, but they might not be able to digest human food. The crash had destroyed most of their supplies, leaving only a few containers of what looked like protein paste and water recyclers. Alex made a decision that would change everything. "Come on. My station has better medical equipment and more space. You can recover there." The creatures exchanged glances, communicating in a series of clicks and growls that Alex couldn't understand. Finally, the larger one nodded. They helped each other stand, leaning on each other and on Alex for support during the difficult journey back to the mining station. Setting them up in the station's unused crew quarters felt strange, but right. Alex brought them food, water, and clean bedding. The smaller creature, who Alex started thinking of as Little One, fell asleep almost immediately. The larger one, now dubbed Guardian, remained awake and watchful. "I'll be in the next room," Alex said, pointing through the doorway. "Call out if you need anything. We'll make noise anyway. We'll figure out communication later." That first night, Alex barely slept. Every sound from the crew quarters brought worries about whether the creatures were attacking, escaping, or dying. But when morning came, Alex found them exactly where they had been left, with Guardian still protecting Little One. Over the following days, a routine developed. Alex would check their injuries, bring them food, and slowly work on the damaged communication equipment from their crashed ship. The creatures watched everything Alex did with intense curiosity. They seemed particularly interested in how Alex repaired machinery, often pointing at tools and making questioning sounds. Guardian, who Alex learned was male, began making attempts at human words. "Alex," he would say, pointing at the human. Then he would point to himself and make a growling sound that Alex eventually realized was Crix. The smaller one was Nala, and she was clearly Crix's sister or close relative. The breakthrough in their relationship came during Alex's daily maintenance routine. While checking the station's external sensors, Alex noticed that Crix was following along, watching every step of the process. On impulse, Alex handed him a simple wrench. "Want to help?" Crix took the tool carefully, his claws adapting to grip it properly. Alex showed him how to tighten the sensor mounting brackets, and Crix caught on immediately. His natural dexterity and strength made him surprisingly good at mechanical work. When they finished the job together, Crix made a sound that Alex was learning to recognize as pleased surprise. From that moment, the dynamic changed. Instead of being patients Alex was caring for, Crix and Nala became partners. They helped with station maintenance, learned basic human tools, and began teaching Alex their language in return. Their presence transformed the lonely mining station into something that felt like a home. Neither Alex nor the alien cubs realized it yet, but they were creating something unprecedented in the galaxy. A bond between species based on mutual respect and genuine care. This relationship would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine. 3 weeks had passed since the crash, and the mining station felt different now. Where once Alex had worked in complete silence, the sound of Crix and Nala learning filled the corridors. They clicked and growled to each other in their native language, but increasingly mixed in human words they had picked up. Alex discovered that teaching came naturally. Unlike the harsh training methods Crix described from his homeworld, Alex used patience and encouragement. When Nala struggled to understand how the water recycling system worked, Alex didn't scold or punish. Instead, Alex broke the explanation into smaller pieces and found different ways to show the same concept. "Look, the dirty water goes in here," Alex said, pointing to the intake valve. "The filters clean it, see these layers? Then clean water comes out there. It's like washing clothes, but for water." Nala's eyes brightened with understanding. She repeated the process back to Alex in broken human words mixed with her own language. When she got it right, Alex smiled and nodded encouragingly. This positive response seemed to surprise both cubs every time it happened. Crix was fascinated by problem-solving. His people, he explained in his growing vocabulary, believed that strength came from fighting and dominance. But Alex showed him different kinds of strength. When the main power coupling failed, Alex didn't attack the problem with brute force. Instead, Alex studied the situation, identified the root cause, and found a creative solution using spare parts. "Why, you not angry?" Crix asked, watching Alex calmly rewire the damaged system. "Is broken." Crix people would roar and hit. Alex paused in the work. "Being angry doesn't fix anything. It just makes it harder to think clearly. Besides, machines break. It's what they do. Getting mad at them is like getting mad at water for being wet." This concept seemed revolutionary to Crix. He began applying the same calm approach to his own problems. When his injured leg made certain movements difficult, instead of frustrating himself trying to force it, he found alternative ways to accomplish the same tasks. Nala showed a talent for understanding patterns and systems. She quickly learned to read the station's warning displays and could predict when maintenance would be needed. based on subtle changes in equipment behavior. Alex encouraged this natural ability, teaching her more about the station's complex systems. "You have a gift," Alex told her as she successfully diagnosed a problem with the air recycling system before any alarms went off. "You see connections that others miss. That's really valuable." The Cubs' concept of value was changing too. In their culture, worth was measured by fighting ability and the capacity to dominate others. But Alex demonstrated that value could come from knowledge, skill, and the ability to help others succeed. When Alex praised their growing abilities, they felt a pride different from anything they had known. The real test of their changing relationship came during the solar storm. The station's automated systems detected the incoming radiation burst 2 hours before it would hit. Alex immediately began emergency preparations, securing equipment and checking the shelter protocols. "Big storm coming," Alex explained to the Cubs while rushing around the station. "Dangerous energy from the sun. We need to get into the shielded compartment until it passes." The shielded compartment was designed for one person in an emergency. With 3 beings, it would be cramped and uncomfortable, but Alex didn't hesitate to include the Cubs in the safety plans. This was another concept that amazed them. Among their people, the strong would take shelter and leave the weak to face danger alone. As the storm approached, the station's radiation detectors began clicking more rapidly. Alex gathered emergency supplies and herded everyone into the small, shielded room. The space was barely large enough for all 3 of them, especially with Crix's size and Nala's need to keep her injured shoulder comfortable. The storm hit harder than predicted. Radiation levels spiked beyond the compartment's normal protection capacity. Alex quickly realized that the shielding was designed for human physiology and might not be adequate for the Cubs' different biology. Without hesitation, Alex positioned their own body between the Cubs and the compartment's thinnest wall where radiation might penetrate. "Alex, what you do?" Crix asked, noticing the human's protective positioning. "Making sure you're both safe," Alex replied, checking the radiation monitor with growing concern. For 18 hours they remained in that cramped space. Alex stayed in the most dangerous position the entire time, absorbing radiation levels that were building toward harmful levels. The Cubs watched this display of selfless protection with growing amazement. In their culture, leaders protected themselves first and followers second. But here was Alex voluntarily taking the greatest risk to keep them safe. When the storm finally passed and they could leave the shelter, Alex was visibly exhausted and showed signs of mild radiation sickness. The Cubs helped Alex to the medical station, their roles temporarily reversed as they became the caretakers. "Why you do this?" Nala asked as she helped Alex sip water and take anti-radiation medication. "You could be hurt. We are not your pack." Alex looked at both of them, seeing the genuine confusion in their golden eyes. "You are my pack now. That's what pack means. You protect each other no matter what." That conversation changed something fundamental in how the Cubs saw their relationship with Alex and with each other. They began to understand that true strength wasn't about dominating others, but about being strong enough to protect and support those you cared about. As Alex recovered over the following days, Crix and Nala took over more of the station maintenance. They had learned well, and their natural abilities combined with Alex's teaching methods made them surprisingly effective. They worked as a team, each covering for the other's weaknesses and building on each other's strengths. "We good students?" Nala asked one evening as they successfully completed a complex repair to the communications array. "You're amazing students," Alex replied honestly. "You learn fast, you think about problems instead of just attacking them, and you take care of each other. Your people should be proud." But even as Alex said it, both Cubs looked troubled. They were learning things that went against everything their culture had taught them. The question that none of them voiced was what would happen when their rescue finally came. Would they be able to take these lessons home, or would they be forced to abandon everything they had learned about cooperation, kindness, and different kinds of strength? The communications array they had just repaired would soon bring that question to a critical point. Unknown to any of them, their successful repair had just sent an automatic distress beacon into space, a beacon that would be detected by ships already searching for 2 missing Cubs. The peaceful time of learning and growth was about to end. And all three of them would face choices that would determine not just their own futures, but the future of two very different civilizations. The first sign of trouble was Crix's sudden change in behavior. One moment he was helping Alex calibrate the mining equipment, and the next he was frozen in place, his nostrils flaring as he tested the air. His entire posture shifted from relaxed to alert in seconds. "What is it?" Alex asked, following Crix's gaze toward the viewport. "Ships," Crix said in a tight voice. "Many ships. My father comes." Through the viewport, distant points of light were growing larger, moving with the purposeful formation of a military fleet. Even at this distance, Alex could see they were massive vessels, built for war rather than exploration or trade. The lead ship dwarfed the mining station by a factor of hundreds. Nala had gone completely still, her golden eyes wide with an emotion Alex had never seen from her before. Fear. Real. Deep. Fear that made her whole body tremble. "They angry?" she whispered. "We gone too long. Father thinks we weak now." Alex felt a cold weight settling in their stomach. Over the past weeks, the cubs had shared more about their culture. Strength was everything to their people. Weakness was not just discouraged, it was punished. And being rescued by what their society considered an inferior species would be seen as the ultimate weakness. "Listen to me," Alex said firmly, kneeling down to look both cubs in the eyes. "You are not weak. You survived a crash, learned new skills, and helped keep this station running. That takes real strength." But even as Alex said it, the reality of the situation was sinking in. The cub's father was a warlord, a leader who had built his power on conquest and dominance. Finding his children not just alive but thriving under the care of a human would create problems Alex couldn't fully imagine. The communication system crackled to life with a harsh, commanding voice speaking in the cub's language. Crix straightened his shoulders and responded, his tone formal and respectful in a way Alex had never heard before. The conversation was brief and clearly one-sided. "What did he say?" Alex asked. "Father commands us to prepare for pickup," Crix translated. "He asks if we are intact." Intact? Not broken, not changed into something weak. Crix's expression was troubled. "Alex, you must know. My people, they see humans as prey animals, weak things that exist to be conquered. If Father thinks we have become weak like humans..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Alex understood. The cubs would be punished, possibly killed, for what their culture would see as contamination. And Alex, as the contaminating influence, would definitely be killed. "Then we don't tell him the whole truth," Alex said calmly. "We tell him you survived by being strong and adaptable. You learned to use the tools available and dominated your environment. That's all true." Nala looked up hopefully. "You think it work? It has to work." The next hour was a flurry of preparation. Alex coached the cubs on how to present their situation in terms their father would understand. They had not been helped by a weak human. They had used available resources to survive and recover. They had not learned cooperation. They had learned to dominate their environment through superior strategy. When the shuttles arrived, Alex got their first look at adult members of Crix and Nala's species. They were larger than the cubs, more heavily muscled, and covered in scars that spoke of lives filled with violence. Their leader, who had to be the warlord himself, stood nearly 8 feet tall and radiated an aura of barely controlled aggression. Drac, the warlord, entered the station with a squad of armed soldiers. His golden eyes, so similar to his children's, swept the mining station with calculating intelligence. When his gaze fell on Alex, it held the kind of assessment a predator gives potential prey. The reunion between father and cubs was not the warm embrace Alex might have expected. Instead, it was a formal inspection. Drac examined their injuries, tested their reflexes, and asked sharp questions about their survival. His tone was that of a commander evaluating soldiers, not a parent welcoming home-lost children. Crix and Nala performed perfectly. They presented themselves as survivors who had overcome adversity through strength and cunning. When Drac asked about Alex's role, Crix described the human as a local resource they had used to access better medical supplies and equipment. This human fixed your injuries? Drac asked, studying Alex with new interest. Yes, father. We commanded it to help us, and it obeyed. Crix lied smoothly. Alex remained silent, letting the cubs control the narrative. But Drac was clearly intelligent and experienced. His eyes missed nothing, including the way the cubs unconsciously positioned themselves, protectively near Alex, and how they looked to the human for subtle cues. Interesting, Drac mused. This human shows unusual compliance for its species. Most humans we encounter try to fight or flee. This one knows its place, Nala added, following her brother's lead. Drac nodded slowly, but Alex could see wheels turning behind his golden eyes. The Warlord was not entirely convinced by the story, but he seemed willing to accept it for now. The immediate crisis appeared to be passing. Then, one of Drac's soldiers made a mistake. While examining the station's equipment, he carelessly damaged a delicate sensor array Alex had spent days repairing. The damage was minor but would require several hours to fix properly. Without thinking, both cubs immediately moved toward the damaged equipment, their faces showing genuine distress. Nala actually took a step toward the soldier, as if to confront him about the careless damage. The reaction lasted only a second before both cubs caught themselves, but it was too late. Drac had seen everything. His expression shifted from suspicious to knowing. You care about this place, he said quietly to his children. You care about its equipment, its maintenance, and... His gaze shifted to Alex. Its keeper. The silence that followed was deadly. Alex could feel the weight of discovery pressing down on all of them. The cubs looked terrified, probably for the first time since Alex had met them. But Drac's next words surprised everyone. Show me what you have learned. For the next several hours, Drac observed as his cubs demonstrated their new skills. They showed him how they had repaired complex machinery, solved technical problems, and worked together to maintain the mining station. With each demonstration, the Warlord's expression became more thoughtful. Finally, he spoke to Alex directly. You taught them these things. It wasn't a question, and Alex knew better than to lie to someone this perceptive. Yes. Why? Because they wanted to learn. Drac considered this answer for a long moment. My children speak highly of your teaching methods. They say you make them stronger without breaking them first. Breaking someone doesn't make them stronger. It just makes them broken. The Warlord's laugh was like rocks grinding together. An interesting philosophy. Tell me, human, what should I do with you? My law says that aliens who see our cubs must die to protect our secrets. Alex felt the cubs tense beside them but kept their voice steady. Your cubs aren't secrets anymore. They're teachers. They've learned things that could benefit your entire people. And you think this gives you value? I think your cubs give themselves value. I just helped them find it. Drac studied all three of them for several more minutes. When he spoke again, his decision surprised everyone, including his own soldiers. You will come with us to our homeworld. My cubs seem to think you have more to teach them, and I am curious to see if your methods can work with others of their generation. Consider yourself a prisoner, but one with certain privileges. Alex looked at Crix and Nala, seeing relief and hope in their golden eyes. It wasn't the outcome any of them had expected, but it meant they could stay together. The cubs had not only survived their rescue, they had found a way to protect their teacher and continue their education. As they prepared to leave the mining station that had been their home for so many weeks, Alex realized that the real test was just beginning. They were about to enter a society built on principles directly opposed to everything they had taught the cubs. But perhaps, with luck and patience, they could plant seeds of change that might grow into something better. The Corvin homeworld was a study in contrasts that took Alex's breath away. Towering cities of black stone stretched toward a purple sky, while vast training grounds spread between them like scars on the landscape. Everything was built for beings, larger and stronger than humans, making Alex feel like a child in a world of giants. The War Academy stood at the center of the capital city, a massive complex where young Corvins learned to become warriors. Its halls echoed with the sounds of combat training, roars of challenge, and the clash of weapons against armor. This was where Crix and Nala would complete their education, and where Alex would face the greatest test of their teaching methods. War Master. Gorth was everything Alex had expected from a traditional Corvan instructor. Nearly as large as Warlord Drac, covered in battle scars, and possessed of a voice that could shake walls when he roared in anger. He looked at Alex with the kind of disgust usually reserved for something found on the bottom of a boot. "This is what my cubs prefer over proven Corvan training," Gorth snarled to Drac during Alex's first day at the academy. "This soft thing that has never seen real battle?" "My cubs show improvement under its methods," Drac replied calmly. "The results speak for themselves." "Results?" Gorth laughed, a harsh sound like breaking stone. "I will show you results. Give me one training cycle with them, and I will burn away whatever weakness this creature has planted in their minds." The arrangement was simple. For the next 30 days, Crix and Nala would train with both instructors. Half their time would be spent with Gorth using traditional methods, and half with Alex using human approaches. At the end, their progress would be evaluated in a series of tests that would determine their future rank and position in Corvan society. The first day of training revealed the vast differences between the two approaches. Gorth's session began with physical punishment for the cubs' perceived softness, followed by brutal combat exercises designed to build aggression through pain and humiliation. When Nala struggled with a particularly difficult weapon form, Gorth struck her with his training staff and roared that weakness would not be tolerated. Alex's session that afternoon focused on understanding why the weapon form was difficult. Through patient observation and gentle correction, Alex helped Nala realize that her smaller size required a different grip and stance than what was traditionally taught. Within an hour, she was performing the form better than she ever had. "Why? You not hit me when I do wrong?" Nala asked afterward, flexing her sore muscles from Gorth's morning session. "Because pain doesn't teach technique," Alex explained. "It just teaches fear. When you're afraid, you can't think clearly or learn effectively." Word of Alex's different methods began to spread through the academy. Young Corvans would find excuses to pass by the training room where Alex worked with Crix and Nala. They watched in fascination as the human instructor used encouragement instead of punishment, explanation instead of intimidation. One young Corvan, named Rex, was particularly intrigued. He had been struggling under Gorth's harsh training, falling behind his peers and facing increasing punishment for his failures. After watching Alex's methods for several days, he approached nervously. "Human, teacher," he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no traditional instructors were watching. Could you help me understand the defensive patterns? War Master Gorth says I am too slow, but I do not know how to be faster." Alex studied the young Corvan's movements and quickly identified the problem. Rex was naturally more thoughtful, then aggressive, trying to understand each defensive position before moving to the next. Gorth's method of shouting and striking him for being slow was making him more cautious, not faster. "You're not too slow," Alex told him. "You're thinking through each move, which is actually good. But you're thinking about them one at a time, instead of seeing the flow. Watch." Alex demonstrated how the defensive patterns connected, each position flowing naturally into the next like parts of a dance. Instead of separate techniques to memorize, it was a continuous movement that could be learned as a whole. Rex's eyes lit up with understanding, and within minutes he was moving through the patterns with smooth efficiency. "I see it now," Rex said excitedly. "It is like water flowing around rocks. Each move prepares for the next one." "Exactly. You have good instincts, Rex. Trust them." Within a week, 3 more young Corvans had quietly requested help from Alex, then 5 more. Each time, Alex's approach of understanding individual strengths and adapting training to suit them produced rapid improvement. The cubs began attracting small crowds of observers who watched their training sessions with growing interest. Gorth was furious. His traditional methods were being questioned by results he couldn't deny. The cubs he was trying to harden through punishment were advancing faster under Alex's gentle guidance. Worse, other students were beginning to ask why they couldn't train with the human teacher too. "This is corruption," Gorth raged to anyone who would listen. "The human makes them soft, dependent on praise and comfort. What happens when they face real enemies who will not encourage them? The criticism stung because it touched on Alex's own fears. Was kindness really preparing these young warriors for the harsh realities of their world? The answer came during an unexpected test. A group of older students loyal to Gorth's philosophy decided to prove that the human-trained cubs were weak. They cornered Crix and Nala in a training room and challenged them to an impromptu combat test. It was 6 against 2, and the older students were larger and more experienced. What happened next amazed everyone who witnessed it. Instead of fighting as individuals the way traditional training taught, Crix and Nala fought as a perfect team. They communicated with subtle signals, covered each other's weaknesses, and used strategy instead of brute force. When one was pressed hard, the other would create an opening for escape or counterattack. More importantly, they remained calm under pressure. Gorth's training taught warriors to fight with rage and aggression, but Alex's training had taught them to think clearly. Even in dangerous situations, they turned their opponent's aggression against them, using superior positioning and timing to overcome superior size and numbers. The fight ended with 4 of the older students on the ground and the other 2 backing away in shock. Crix and Nala stood together, barely breathing hard, having defeated opponents who should have easily overpowered them. News of the victory spread through the academy like wildfire. Young Corvins, who had been secretly watching Alex's methods now, openly requested permission to join the training sessions. Even some instructors began quietly observing, curious about techniques that could produce such impressive results. Warlord Drac arrived that evening to investigate reports of the unusual combat. He found Alex in the training room with Crix, Nala, and 12 other young Corvins, all working together to master a complex group combat formation. "Explain to me what I am seeing," Drac commanded. "Teamwork," Alex replied simply. "Individual strength has limits, but coordinated strength can overcome almost any obstacle." Drac watched as the young Corvins moved through the formation with precision that would have impressed veteran soldiers. Each one knew not just their own role, but how to adapt when others made mistakes or fell behind. It was a level of cooperation he had never seen in Corvin warriors. This formation would be devastatingly effective in real combat, he observed. More effective than traditional individual fighting, yes, but that's not the real advantage. "What is?" Alex gestured to the young Corvins, who were helping each other correct mistakes and celebrating each other's successes. "They're not afraid to help each other or ask for help. They're not competing with their teammates, they're collaborating with them. That makes the whole group stronger than the sum of its parts." Drac considered this for a long moment. "Warmaster Gorth believes your methods make warriors soft and dependent." "Warmaster Gorth has never seen humans in actual combat," Alex replied quietly. "We conquered our entire planet not through individual strength, but through cooperation. We built tools that make us stronger than creatures 10 times our size. We created societies that protect the weak and allow everyone to contribute their best abilities. That's not softness. That's intelligence." The Warlord's golden eyes studied Alex with new respect. "And you believe you can teach these concepts to Corvin warriors?" "I believe I already have." As if to prove the point, the young Corvins had continued their training while the adults talked, unconsciously demonstrating everything Alex had just described. They worked together seamlessly, each one making the others better through support and cooperation. Drac nodded slowly. "The final evaluation will tell us if your methods truly work, but I admit, what I see here is impressive." As he left, Alex felt a mixture of hope and nervousness. The real test was still coming, and it would determine not just the cubs' futures, but whether human teaching methods could find a place in Corvin society. The next few days would reveal whether kindness and cooperation could prove themselves in a world built on strength and dominance. The trial of proving had claimed the lives of young warriors for over 1,000 years. The ancient testing ground lay deep beneath the War Academy, carved from living rock and filled with challenges designed to forge the strongest survivors of each generation. As Alex descended the stone steps with Crix and Nala, the weight of history pressed down like a physical force. 30% mortality rate, Alex murmured, reviewing the statistics one final time. What kind of society accepts those odds for their children? A society that values only the strongest, Crix replied grimly. His confidence from recent training successes had given way to nervous tension. Father says the trials will prove whether human methods create true warriors or just clever weaklings. The testing chamber was massive, filled with obstacles that seemed designed by someone who understood the darkest aspects of Corvan psychology. Spiked pits that required perfect timing to cross. Combat zones where mechanical opponents attacked with lethal precision. Puzzles that traditional Corvan thinking solved through brute force, regardless of the cost in injury or exhaustion. War Master Gorth stood at the observation platform with Warlord Drac and the other Academy instructors. His scarred face showed grim satisfaction as he explained the trial's deadliest features to Alex. The Maze of Blades tests individual combat skill against multiple opponents. The Chasm of Courage requires warriors to face their deepest fears while navigating deadly obstacles. The final challenge, he paused dramatically, has never been completed by anyone who entered as a team. It is designed to break bonds of dependency and reveal true individual strength. Alex listened to each description with growing alarm. Every element of the trial was specifically designed to favor the aggressive, individualistic approach of traditional Corvan training. Cooperation was not just unrewarded, it was actively punished by the structure of the challenges. The cubs will enter alone, Gorth announced, as has always been the way. Wait, Alex said, stepping forward. You're separating them? The trial reveals individual worth. Partnerships are weakness, but they've trained as a team. Their strength comes from working together. Gorth's laugh echoed off the stone walls. Then they will learn the price of depending on others when those others are not available. Drac raised a clawed hand for silence. The human makes a point. If we are testing the effectiveness of its training methods, we should test them as they were taught. He turned to Alex. However, you should know that no team has ever survived the final challenge. The trial's creator specifically designed it to be impossible for groups. Then maybe it's time someone proved them wrong. The first test was the Maze of Blades. Traditional approach would be for each warrior to fight their way through individually, using aggression and superior combat skills to overcome the automated opponents. Alex watched nervously as Crix and Nala entered the maze together, knowing that their different approach would either vindicate everything they had learned or get them killed. What happened next amazed the observers. Instead of fighting every opponent they encountered, the cubs used strategy and communication. Nala's smaller size allowed her to slip through passages that would trap larger opponents, while Crix's strength handled the battles that couldn't be avoided. They moved through the maze like water finding the easiest path, avoiding unnecessary confrontations and supporting each other when fighting became unavoidable. They completed the Maze of Blades in half the time of the previous record holder, and with minimal injuries. Interesting, Drac commented. They treat the maze as a problem to be solved, not an enemy to be defeated. The Chasm of Courage proved even more revealing. This test forced warriors to confront their deepest fears while navigating a series of deadly obstacles suspended over a bottomless pit. The traditional approach was to overcome fear through rage and determination, pushing forward despite terror. Crix's greatest fear turned out to be failing his sister. Nala's was being abandoned by those she cared about. In the traditional trial, these fears would have paralyzed them or driven them to reckless actions. But Alex's training had taught them that acknowledging fear was the first step to overcoming it. I'm afraid, Crix announced to Nala as they approached a particularly dangerous series of swinging blades. Me too, she replied. But we face it, together. Instead of hiding their fears or being driven by them, they used fear as information. Fear told them where the real dangers lay, what they needed to be careful about, and how to protect each other. They moved through the Chasm of Courage with careful precision, each one calling out warnings and encouragement to the other. By the time they reached the final challenge, a crowd had gathered on the observation platform. Word of their unprecedented performance had spread throughout the academy. Young Corvans who had trained with Alex watched with obvious pride. while traditional instructors muttered among themselves about the implications of what they were seeing. The final challenge was a perfect sphere carved from solid rock, with only one entrance. Inside, according to legend, lay a test that stripped away all pretense and revealed the true nature of those who entered. No one knew exactly what the test contained because those who failed it died, and those who succeeded rarely spoke of what they had experienced. Last chance to separate them, Gorth said to Drac. Once they enter together, tradition demands they face whatever is inside as a unit. Then let us see what human methods have created, Drac replied. Alex felt their heart pounding as they watched Crix and Nala disappear into the sphere. Everything they had taught, every moment of patience and encouragement, every lesson about cooperation and mutual support, would be tested in the next few minutes. Inside the sphere, the cubs found themselves in complete darkness, standing on what felt like solid stone. Then lights began to appear, revealing their worst nightmare. The chamber was filled with dozens of their own people, Corvins in full battle armor, all pointing weapons at the two cubs. A voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in the ancient tongue of their people. Prove your worth. Only the strongest may leave this place. The weak must be abandoned. This was the true test, not physical prowess or combat skill, but the willingness to sacrifice others for personal survival. Traditional Corvin philosophy said that strength meant being willing to step over the fallen bodies of the weak. The final challenge was designed to see if young warriors had truly internalized this lesson, but Crix and Nala had learned different lessons. They moved to stand back to back, protecting each other as the armed figures began to advance. I will not abandon you, Crix said firmly. Nor I you, Nala replied. The figures attacked and the cubs fought as they had been trained by Alex, as a perfect team. Every move one made created an opening for the other. They communicated without words, anticipated each other's needs, and turned their opponents' individual strength against them through superior coordination. But there were too many enemies. For every opponent they defeated, two more appeared. Slowly, inevitably, they were being overwhelmed. Traditional Corvin thinking would demand that the stronger cub abandon the weaker one to save themselves. Instead, as exhaustion began to take its toll and their situation became hopeless, something unexpected happened. The armed figures stopped attacking and began to fade away like smoke. The ancient voice spoke again, but this time with what sounded like surprise. In 1,000 years, none have chosen mutual protection over personal survival. The test is complete. The cubs found themselves standing in an empty chamber with a single exit leading upward. They had not just survived the final challenge, they had completed it in a way that challenged its fundamental assumptions. When they emerged from the sphere, the observation platform was silent. Even Gorth seemed stunned by what had occurred. The cubs showed signs of exhaustion and minor injuries, but they were both alive and triumphant. How? Drac asked simply. The test was designed wrong, Alex said quietly. It assumed that strength meant being willing to sacrifice others. But real strength means being strong enough to protect others, even when it costs you something. Drac looked at his cubs, who stood together with quiet pride in their achievement. And you believe this makes them better warriors? I believe it makes them better leaders. Warriors fight battles. Leaders inspire others to win wars. The implications of Alex's words settled over the assembled Corvins like a weight. For centuries, their society had been built on the principle that individual strength was supreme. But here stood proof that cooperation and mutual support could achieve what individual prowess could not. War Master Gorth, Drac said formally, your assessment of the humans' training methods? Gorth was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with concepts that challenged everything he had believed. Finally, he spoke with grudging respect. The results cannot be denied. These cubs have achieved something unprecedented. If this is weakness, then perhaps we need to reconsider what strength truly means. In the days that followed, Alex was formally granted the title of Pack Leader to future warriors, the first non-Corvin ever to hold an official position in their military hierarchy. Young Corvins lined up to request training in human methods, And even veteran instructors began incorporating cooperation and encouragement into their traditional approaches. Crix and Nala became symbols of a new way of thinking about strength and leadership. They would graduate to become instructors themselves, teaching future generations that true power came not from dominating others, but from inspiring them to achieve their best. As Alex looked out over the training grounds where young Corvins now practiced teamwork alongside traditional combat skills, they realized that the greatest victory was not in the trial of proving, but in planting seeds of change that would grow for generations. The human approach of patience, cooperation, and mutual support had found a place in Corvin society, proving that strength took many forms, and that the greatest strength of all was the courage to protect and nurture others. The alien warlords, Cubs had met a human first, and through that meeting, two civilizations had learned something valuable about the true nature of power.